comments I have heard from Alder Palm in 9 years. I sincerely did not mean that as a joke. Wow. It's going to sound doubly trite now, considering the timing and considering what's transpired over the past 48 hours for me to say that I absolutely 100% support the Madison Police Department and am in awe of the job that the men and women of that department do every day. And I hope that my actions over 9 years, rather than my words tonight, have demonstrated that. And I was frankly shocked last Wednesday when I was at a neighborhood meeting listening, and Chief Koval was presenting, when I suddenly heard how little this council cares for the Madison Police Department and how much time we spend bashing the Madison Police Department. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I didn't understand who he was talking about. That certainly has not been my experience, and I'm disappointed, and perhaps we don't say it often enough, and we don't do the honoring resolutions that perhaps we should, to make that clear. And that's on me and everyone, but I had no idea that I didn't support the Madison Police Department until last Wednesday. And that pained me to hear that coming from my police chief. And then to hear him rail against this proposal we're considering tonight and describe it as unneeded, unnecessary, and many other words that I won't repeat. They were mostly in his blog post Sunday night, but when I saw his blog Sunday night, it was not a surprise to me because I'd heard all this before about 100 of my and Alder Skidmore's constituents the previous Wednesday. And I was so upset I did something I never thought I'd do. I left the meeting. I walked out. I couldn't hear it anymore. And I've questioned myself whether that was the right decision, and questioned my own actions, and questioned the words of the chief. But I just physically could not hear it anymore. And so it's been a very difficult last 7 days, not just since Sunday, to hear the chief's frankly very, very hurtful comments, and to see him rile up the public, who most of whom knew nothing of this proposal until they read about it in his blog, and then to hear them essentially parrot his words tonight was again very, very painful. And I hope we never have a public manager in this city who turns against this body so viciously. I'm sorry to have to go there, but I really felt personally that it was completely unnecessary. I wish that he or one of his assistant chiefs had picked up the phone and called me, maybe a couple weeks before Police Week, and said, hey, Police Week is coming up. Let's do an honoring resolution for all of our great staff. And I would have said, great. And I think everyone on this body would have said, great, let's do it. You know, we'd celebrate Arbor Week and all kinds of other things because the staff is aware that these dates are coming up and asks us to sponsor them in part to honor their own staff. And I can't imagine us not doing exactly the same for the police department. So I'm going to support this tonight. I think it's appropriate. I frankly have questioned why we might have a public manager who would be so defensive of his department and so angry of scrutiny that it makes me wonder whether there might be something there. And I question myself for even having that thought. I should stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderperson Fair, to be followed by Alderperson Zellers.
Well, Chief, I hope you'd stay and listen to the comments.
I thought perhaps that the rules would have allowed staff to accompany, so now I'm sort of precluded from responding to any of these said that the staff questioning is over, I guess I can...
You sure can, but
Thank you.
I think it'd be appropriate for you to stay.
Well,
But
you could tell me to my face, too, or you could just...
I was going to. If you'd sit down, I was going to look right at you, so...
I'm sorry,
Do I have a chance
could we
to
have regular
respond?
order, please? Let me interject as chair, chief, and for others. It would be appropriate for alders to ask questions of staff during the discussion as well if they desire. So if any member of the council would like to ask you a question, they could do so now or over the next several minutes. That's not out of order. Well, typically we do take staff questions before we do general discussion, but if someone wants to ask the chief a question under the discussion, I don't believe that is out of order. Okay, so it is appropriate for Alderperson Fair to continue. Whether or not the chief chooses to stay or not is
Fair
his
enough.
own
You can go.
decision.
Fair enough.
Alderperson
No
Fair, you
pun
have the
intended.
floor.
All right. So what I'm going to say, Chief, is I'll take it one step farther than Alder Clear and Alder Gruber and Alder Palm. I'm not going to say that I appreciate the police department. Because if people don't know, through my actions, through my work, that I do, then too bad. And quite frankly, if they don't know that this council does, as Alder Clear alluded to, then I think they're missing something. And so I'm just not going to be threatened or bullied into right now because we feel like we have to say that. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. I mean, I don't know what else to say on that. I mean, we've worked, anyway, I'm going to stop on that point. So I support this very strongly, and I just want to say it's been said already. I don't think any of us can really articulate as well as the members of the committee articulated the reason for going forward with this. It's obvious the dedication, the work, the thought that's gone into this. So I'm not going to repeat much of that. I only want to say that we set up this committee a year ago. We put faith in it. We know it represents the community. We know it represents communities of color specifically who are not a small few bunch of protesters and any other little cliches people want to use about them. It's a big group of people with diverse backgrounds. And because we set the committee up and they did the work and they came back to us and said, if we're going to do this, we have to do it right, we should take the recommendation and we should go forward with it. And the other thing I want to say is this, you know, all the emails I've been getting now because, quite frankly, of the chief's blog is about the money. You know, I apparently we have a fiscally conservative chief all of a sudden. But this is not about the money because it's about either do the study or don't do the study, because they're telling us if you're going to do it right, spend the money. If you're not going to do it, don't do it, and disband the committee. So it's really not about $50,000 or $400,000. It's about doing it right. And so where this came from about this is about the money and why are we spending all this money, I've heard it several times in several different interviews, is really mind-boggling. And I find it really hard to justify that that's the actual reason for why we shouldn't do this. So I hope that we can get past this at some point. I fear that it's going to be hard. And I want to work with the police department. I have a lot of things that, as you all know, we're working on to get at the root causes. There's a suppression part that we're dealing with the police department review, and then there's probably more importantly the root causes that this body really has a responsibility to look at. And that leads me to my last point about back to money. You know, why are we funding this when we should be funding other things? This council, since I've been on it, has stepped up its funding and its attention to social services and human services that are meant to complement the police department, are meant to answer the question that the chief rightly asked the community to do, and that is to step up and help the police department and come to their aid and the community to step up. And we have listened to that. I have listened to that. And we've committed to that. Are we there yet? No, we're not even close. But I think we're on the path to go there. And so I would hate that the last few days, the last few weeks will put a damper on that working relationship. I'm worried, but I know that I will continue to work, and I hope others will join. So obviously I'm supporting this, and thank you for listening.